So this is a cold one with Corey and Carlisle. And if you don't know already, this is simply a free-form conversation recording session where Carlisle and I, we sit down, we have a six-pack of beer, and we talk about things that happened the previous week before. Now, these are more like audio podcasts, which means that they're longer than our video reviews, and they're also unedited. So if you're offended by the foul language, you might not want to listen. But if you aren't, then sit back, hang out with us, and we hope you enjoy. Thanks.
Live from the Spill Studios, located north of the dumpster behind a liquor store off the I-35 interchange, it's time once again for A Couple of Cold Ones with Corey and Carlisle.
Next to the crackhead. And
tonight on a very special Couple of Cold Ones.
why is it special?
I have no fucking idea.
Oh, you know what? I think you stuttered before because we're actually drinking beer this time.
Stutter.
We're drinking Beck's. And I don't know if everyone realizes this, but we haven't been drinking on the last few shows.
Well, no.
Maybe water.
No, it's been one of those weird things where you and I have been so busy because November's a really busy month. Mm-hmm. I've literally interrupted working to come here, record, and go back home and write more all night. And so I couldn't drink beer.
Yeah.
Because, drinking beer is great when you're sitting around and talking, not so much for typing.
No, not so much for anything. I got sick last week. I was hanging out so much. I went to a place where they had an open bar, and I haven't gone that crazy in a while. And I drank something you should not drink.
Did you have an Irish car bomb?
No, I had something worse. People, let me tell you something. And I'm being dead serious about this. Vodka and Red Bull, not good.
Okay, first of all, here's something that a lot of people don't talk about. Red Bull, when it mixes with alcohol, becomes a poison. It becomes something that your kidneys do not like. And if you drink too many of them, not only can you get violently ill, but you can actually have serious body malfunctions as a result.
It's bad for your heart, too.
Yeah.
Because you don't realize you'll keep drinking them. And after a while, you get – look, when you have the jitters for 2 days – like 2 days I had the jitters. I thought I was having a hangover. It's like, no, I'm shaking. I need to stop
You're
this.
You're mixing stimulants with a depressant, and it's never a good idea to balance out a stimulant with a depressant because your body isn't going to know how fucked up it is until it's too late.
That's what Cyrus was saying. He says he serves people vodka and Red Bull all the time, and he tells them, I don't like serving this to you, but if you're paying for it and it's not outlawed, here you go. After 2 days of being sick and shaking and feeling like I was just trying to get off heroin, I'm like, that shit should be outlawed. They should not let that shit mix together at all.
That said, it's delicious.
But it was good. Kept me partying
That's why
all
people
night.
drink it. It tastes great, But what I like to tell people is, so's antifreeze. Antifreeze tastes delicious.
That's why dogs eat it.
Yeah, that's why you can't keep around antifreeze when you have dogs because they lick it. It tastes like sugar.
Yes.
Like, oh, this is great.
Yeah, somebody
And
said
then they die.
Yeah, and then they die. Somebody said it was like the Joker just fed somebody's dog. They said that dog was dying, but it looked like it was smiling because his mouth was having contractions, and it was like yeah. And they said that dog died with a smile on his face, but maybe because the taste is so good. That's gonna be me with vodka Red Bull after a while.
Hey, puppy, why so serious?
Yeah, that dog died. But so anyway, we're actually drinking, but we're not drinking anything too bad. We're
not going heavy. It's
tame.
We just got done doing a recording session with the boys, and now we need to unwind with a couple of cold ones.
That was intense. That recording session. I don't know why.
I don't know. Well, you did get a little tense. You actually lost it for a
No,
moment.
I didn't lose it. I have to stop people because you guys do this to me. Now, you don't know.
We all do this to each other.
No, we all do this to each other, but especially to me. And I know why, because I'm usually the one who's being silly. I like to bring in the funny stuff because I have to, mainly for the video. A lot of people think I'm real goofy, and I am. I do it on purpose. And I know why you interrupt me, because a lot of times they're like, oh, he ain't got nothing to say. He's going to be silly. But sometimes I do have something serious to say, and I sit back and I let you guys go for a long time. You and Cyrus would talk about each other like you guys are. You see the way I interrupted you, but both you guys are the same. You would interrupt me right when I'm talking.
Well, what happened tonight though was I was trying to back up your points and actually add a thing. Like I was actually like, you brought up something. I'm like, oh, I've got one thing I want to say about that. Not wanted to take over. I just wanted to say this one thing. You're like, put your hand down.
No, I know I
like,
did.
oh.
No, I know I did. And it wasn't like, put your hand down. I was like, put your hand down. I just want to finish this point. And after I'm done, you could have said something. I do not get upset and scream at you guys anymore. I do come in and say, look, let me talk. Let me finish my point.
Then after that, I said, "Oh, hey, something you said here that I wanted," and I was going to back you up and elongate the point. You're like, "No, I just already said that. That's exactly what I said." I was like, "All right, you know what? I don't need it." Yeah.
I really wasn't mad.
You got tense. And
no,
so
I wasn't mad.
You backed off, and we let you do your thing, and you calmed down, and it got good. But no, you got tense there for a second.
It gets to no, I didn't. If it got tense, and it wasn't tense, and I wasn't mad. It got to a point where even if you were backing me up, I just did not want to be interrupted. I just wanted to get my point out because once I'm done, I'm done. I will let you guys talk, and then I'll go back to being silly Corey. I'll go back to like coming in with stupid shit and making jokes and being goofy. But I just want to get my review out, and I'm gone.
See, the thing is, we all interrupt each other. And you act like this thing that you do it to us all the time.
No. We all interrupt each other. We do. But all you guys, look, I'm giving you I'm praising you. You usually make really good points. You all make very smart statements, and you all sit around and you're used to kind of letting each other finish your points, and especially when you're on a roll about when you're reviewing the movie. It's really you guys are so used to interrupting me because I am being goofy that I don't understand why. That's why I'm not upset.
No. We're used to interrupting everyone. We all interrupt each other. In fact, it's really funny if you go back. I've been watching some of the really old reviews because you buried those. You took those all off servers, and those have vanished. The old Real Deal reviews.
Oh, the old Real Deal reviews. Yeah.
And they're all gone. So people have been digging them up and putting them on YouTube. I've been watching some of them. I'm like, God damn, do we step on each other back in the day?
Well, those are edited too.
No, I know they are, but still, even then, we were stepping on each other left and right. There were literally points, stuff you don't see anymore, like all four of us talking at once.
Just go back and listen, because you're right. I mean, we do. I mean, just 3 weeks ago, Cyrus got really pissed at you for stepping on his line. I don't even know what happened, but
yeah, you do. No, that was when he and Leon were going back and forth in the geek fight, and I just said, "Nerd fight, round 2," and he just, "Stop stepping on my line." It was that moment.
No, we all do it. You can't help it when there's 4 guys.
No, I'm not saying we don't all do it.
No, I'm just saying go back and listen. You hear that when I'm actually giving a serious review, when I'm coming in trying to say something about the movie, it's very easy conditionally from the way we've worked for years to come in and just interrupt me with anything. But that's the only reason why I come in and say that.
You suffer for the same thing that you hit us on. You're like, man, you were taking too long. And you're like in minute 3 of what you're talking about. It's like, hey, I want to jump in here. And you're like, no.
I'm always thinking that you guys are taking a long time, and I don't care.
All think that.
But because I don't mind. Because I know I would either edit it down or you're saying something good. But I let you finish. I do not interrupt with the hopes that I'm setting an example here where you do not interrupt me, but you motherfuckers do anyway.
There you are. There you go.
All right. So speaking of moving on,
let's get into this week's Top 5, brought to you by Spill.
Damn, you sure it's not brought to you by Vodka and Red Bull? Because you really threw yourself.
Brought to you by Vodka and Red Bull. We really wired. When you really want to have a good time, try Vodka and Red Bull. Yeah.
I wish people could see your face right now. That was the scariest looking glance you gave at me. Oh man, when I got the car, I couldn't wait to vomit that shit out my system.
That's because your system couldn't wait to get it out.
Yeah, no.
This is poison. Get it out of me.
I wasn't driving naturally, of course, but I was with Hi, and I said, Hi, when we stop, I'm going to violently vomit in somebody's yard. I don't know whose, but I'm just letting you know in case you don't want to look.
That reminds me, I had this funny, speaking of drinking stories, I was at Fantastic Fest this year, and I allowed myself one night in Fantastic Fest to drink and just get shit-faced, and that was, of course, the big karaoke night. And one of my friends from Britain, who I get to see him once a year. He comes to Fantastic Fest every year. Great guy. And he's bringing a couple other people from his company to Fantastic Fest this year. He's like, oh, I can't wait for you to meet Carlisle. He's a really eloquent guy. He really is very well spoken. You're not going to meet anybody who can talk about film for as long as this guy and can just elucidate on everything. You're going to love this guy. This guy's great. He's going to be right up your alley. You're going to love him. And so they walk in, and I'm like laying down on a couch. I'm like shit-faced off of 4 20-ounce cans, 24-ounce cans of Foster's, which I had no idea were twice the alcohol content of a regular beer. I had like the extreme. So it was like I'd had almost 13, 14 beers over the span of an hour.
Man. Mr. Eloquent, huh?
Yeah, and so he walks up, he's like, "Hey, this is Carlisle." And I'm like, ran outside to vomit in the street. And he's like, "Oh my God, I've built this guy." He's like, no, that's the perfect end of that story.
Yeah, probably not the best time. The guy's poking you with a stick. Say something eloquent. Yeah, huh? Come on.
It's just, that was a fun night, let me tell you. So anyhow,
speaking of eloquence,
back onto the top 5, brought to you by Spill.
We have number 5, role models.
Number 5, role models.
There you go.
Still there. I'm still glad it's there. There's not really much more we could say about it. If you haven't seen it, it's fucking funny. Go watch it.
Yeah, it's been in the top 10. I mean, top 5 for 3 weeks. Yeah, what can we say? Except that it's made $48 million so far.
Cool.
And it brought in $7.2 million this week. So it's still going kind of strong. Not bad at all. Not bad at all.
So let's move on to number 4.
Number 4, Madagascar 2, Escape to Africa.
Which brings us to number 3.
Stop it. Hold on. Made damn, man. Look, it needs to be said. This movie has made $137.4 million right now. That's amazing. $16 million it brought in this weekend. On a busy weekend, $16 million is not bad.
Yeah, except it's really depressing that money didn't go to a much better film, which is in the number 3 slot.
Which is Bolt.
Which is far, far superior. Man, did this disappoint a lot of people financially. This was supposed to, own the weekend, except that... Well, number 1 we'll get to. So,
well, let's see. Bolt made $27 million, so not bad business. It really isn't bad. I told you I liked the movie. I liked them. I gave it full price, but I told you I wasn't as enthusiastic about it as you guys were.
But let me ask you something. If I were to give you $10 right now and forced you to go to one movie, and that movie could either be Bolt or Madagascar 2, which movie would you go and see?
Well, look, I personally would go see Bolt, but a lot of people, you got to take in mind the business here. Madagascar's a sequel. And
I don't care.
I know you don't care, but I'm talking from a business angle. Madagascar's a sequel.
The business angle.
That's why it did as well as it did.
I'm aware of that. I'm just saying it's depressing because Bolt is a far superior film.
And even then, that can be argued. Some people might like the wackiness of Madagascar over Bolt. They may not like that.
Yeah, but those people rode in on a short bus and are going back to take their meds before they go to sleep.
I'm just telling you, man, it's all based on opinion. It's all based on opinion here. We are not right. We are not wrong.
When it comes to Madagascar 2, we're right. That movie was lame.
Come on. You gave Madagascar a matinee.
No, go back and see what I said. I said if you have kids and your kids want to see it, it's a matinee. Otherwise, it's not worth checking out. It's a rental at best.
Well, the kids have made their choice. They'd rather go see Madagascar than Bolt.
And that's depressing. That's all I'm saying is Bolt is a far better film.
I like Bolt. Bolt is not the end-all of end-all, though. It's a good movie.
Who said it was an end-all of end-all? I said it was a far better film than Madagascar.
I like it. I didn't think it was going to be the huge hit that you thought it was. That's all.
I'm not saying I thought it was going to be a huge hit.
Did you not? Okay.
No, I didn't know what it was going to do. It's been a really wacky month, as evidenced by what we're about to talk about here in 2 films. But let's get to the number 2 movie of the week.
People are loving James Bond, man. Quantum of Solace.
Quantum of Solace rocks.
Yeah, $109.5 million. Look, I'm so glad that this movie's doing well.
Oh, yeah.
I love James Bond, and we argued. I don't know why we were arguing so much about because I thought it was a matinee, and you guys thought it was full price. And I really do believe that.
And Cyrus backed you up. He also thought it was a matinee.
Yeah, and he did. But I will be behind James Bond 100% if it even makes a decent film. Yeah. And I think this movie, even though I thought it was a matinee, still right up there with the best James Bond movies made.
It's absolutely a good film. It's great. I can easily see why some people don't think it's as good as the Casino Royale. I think they're 2 very different films, and I like them both as they are, but I love the fact that they're telling a story. And I love the fact that it's done so well, it's going to get another film here in 2 years, and that film is going to pick up right where this one left off, and that's a story I want to watch.
This is going to be brilliant, man. I'm so excited to see the next James Bond movie. I can't even tell. I'm busting at the seams right now. I want to see that shit tomorrow.
Dude, it's cool.
Bring that shit out right now.
It's going to be awesome.
Let's build a time machine. Go see that movie.
But speaking of movies you shouldn't probably go and see, let's talk about the number 1 movie.
Okay.
Of the week.
So I know. Now, we're going to jump into talking about this movie. So let's go ahead and say what the movie made. A whopping $70.6 million, man. Crazy business.
It's not just crazy business. It's actually very weird. If you actually look at how those numbers are, it's a really bizarre weekend because this movie is very front loaded. It is very much an event movie. It made $35 million its opening day.
Do you want this last beer?
Do you want it?
Take it. No, go ahead.
No, I'm still working on mine.
No, go ahead. You know what? You want to split it?
No.
I'll pour some in there.
No. Drink the fucking beer. Let me talk about Twilight. Okay. The thing about this is that it made $35 million its opening day. Its second day, it only made $20 million. And its third day, it only made about $13 million. So by Sunday, its business, it was doing a third of the business that it was doing on Friday. On Friday,
Damn,
sorry.
You okay? You're conjuring up a demon.
Yeah. But this movie was very front-loaded. It did like superhero movie numbers on its opening day and then just trailed off the whole weekend.
Well, with the holidays coming up, it could probably end up doing well again. I don't know, but the movie, it's been getting good word of mouth amongst its fans. So with Thanksgiving coming up, don't be surprised if this continues.
It's been getting weird word of mouth amongst its fans. Fans are happy that the movie's there, but I've been hearing from a lot of fans that they don't like some of the changes they made. They don't like the way they did things. Certain fans aren't really happy with the film.
You say that, but you know what they say? They say it's different. I've even heard people say it's cheesy. Yeah, it's kind of silly, but you know what they say? I'd go see it again. I like it. Okay.
Now, I didn't watch your review. What did you guys think?
Co-host and I went to one of the midnight movies like you did, and we came. And this is going to bring up another good point with people out there. We came out of it, and I never went in. This goes to prove how fair I try to go into movies. A lot of people went in saying, "I can't wait to trash this movie," or they were telling us, "I can't wait for you to trash this movie." And I'm thinking to myself, "Yeah, it'd be great if I can trash this movie." But I saw it. I thought it was ridiculous. I thought it was, especially at the beginning. Okay, I'll just give you a real quick review. At the beginning, the setup I thought was kind of cool. Middle, boring. The last part, totally ridiculous. But I thought it gave those fans of that book what they wanted. And even when I saw it, I got some entertainment out of it. So I gave it a kind of low matinee.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't. I can't even come close to that. I would say at best a low rental. I really just, the thing is the movie's paced fine. Catherine Hardwicke directed this.
Yeah, 13.
And 13, The Nativity Story,
and
Lords of Dogtown.
Lords of Dogtown, yeah.
All competent films. But she knows how to pace a movie, and the pacing was fine. The movie moved along. It never got really dull. The problem is, everything about the movie is fucking ridiculous. The movie it's supposed to be about vampires, right?
Yeah.
There weren't any fucking vampires in that movie. Where were the goddamn I remember a few vampires showed up that were kind of vampire-like, but there is nothing about these that are like vampires. There's one thing to reinvent a myth. There's another thing to just call something a vampire when it's fucking not.
Okay. I will argue that with today, people can make vampires out of anything.
No,
you can change that. You can change the lore of vampires around as much as you want. People do it all the time.
This is the grossest of grievances against it. This is, they walk around in sunlight. They show up in mirrors. They can be photographed. They have no problems with crosses or garlic or any number of the other.
But how many movies do we see where they say that they don't have problems with crosses or garlic? I mean, even in Interview with a Vampire, Brad Pitt said, "I like crosses."
There's changing small things like that, and then there's some of the biggest things like sunlight. Like, oh no, the reason we don't
Blade can walk around in sunlight.
That we can not only walk around in the sunlight, but we sparkle like diamonds when we do. And don't bring up Blade. Blade is a half vampire, and it's specifically what's cool about him is that he can walk around in day.
Carla, see, this is what you like about vampires, and this is your story.
No,
somebody else can write a vampire story about people wanting to do vampires and walk around in sunlight if they want to.
No, you're not listening to me. Changing an aspect of a vampire is one thing. Like you quoted Brad Pitt, but the thing is Anne Rice's vampires, they still had to deal with certain vampire rules. They could be staked through the heart. They still couldn't walk around in daylight. it's one thing if you're going to change. Oh, sure, of course they can go across running water. That was just old superstition. I'm fine with that. I love a lot of vampires that change that stuff, but there are certain fundamental things. One of the fundamental things is that you have to drink human blood.
And now, they do that in the movie.
Except these vampires are vegetarians that actually just drink the blood of animals.
And look,
and sparkle like diamonds, and show up in mirrors, and you get to a point where it's
there are a lot of movies there are a lot of movies where vampires can show up in mirrors.
They are, but see, they get the other parts right if they do that. The point is, these vampires have none of the classic vampire things. They're just superheroes that they don't even have fangs. They're just superheroes that drink the blood of animals. That doesn't make them vampires. It makes them superheroes.
You don't understand. These are your rules that you've made. Now, if you wrote it,
these aren't
yes, because listen to what I'm telling you. Yes, there are certain things about vampires that we've grown up with. This is somebody who's taken it and they've done a retelling of what their version of a vampire is. Nobody has to adhere to the same rules for a vampire. Things can be changed around.
But if you do that, you have to do something interesting with it, which this movie never does. This movie does not do anything interesting and new with vampires at all. It uses what this woman did was she took all the things she likes about vampires and got rid of all the things she doesn't really like about vampires to tell a story that's ultimately duller than shit.
People they consistently change the lore of vampires. I mean, we've done it so much. I mean, now think about. Let's take example.
Okay.
Stop.
I want you to argue this.
Listen to what I'm telling you. Can I finish my point here? I mean, I'm in the middle of talking. This is what I'm talking about.
Go for it.
Okay. A long time ago, maybe somebody would have said what you're saying right now. Look, they changed the whole thing about vampires. This person does. They have not changed it into bats. They don't show up in mirrors. They can't be killed with garlic. How many vampires do we have that they do that with now? We've seen that in Interview with a Vampire. Nope. I mean, they did the same thing in I think Near Dark, where everything was stripped down about vampire lore, except for the fact that they drink blood and they're killed by sunlight. So throughout years, they've transformed. And so this woman has taken her version of what she considers to be a vampire, and she says, so I'm going to tell my story of what I think a vampire is. They don't walk around in sunlight because they glitter. And maybe people thought because beforehand that it was the sunlight that would kill them. Well, the truth is that their skin reveals who they really are. Now, the movie's ridiculous. I'm going to tell you that right now. I have far more crazy things to argue about this movie than her changing vampire lore, because anybody can do that. Things that don't make sense to me is if you're a vampire and apparently a mortal, or you live for years upon years, centuries upon centuries, why would you even bother? And you're strong, you're supernatural or super strength or whatever, you can fly. Why would you even bother going to high school?
Oh, absolutely.
Why? I think that would. And they say we're so nervous and scared about revealing who we are. Well, you're enrolling in high school.
Yeah,
you're giving yourself
That's
away
the
right
next
there.
Big problem, because they've never either heard of homeschooling. Because why aren't you going to high school? Oh, I'm homeschooled by my parents. Or the aspect of, what do you mean high school? I graduated from high school 3 years ago. Are you saying I look young? And making somebody feel awkward. If you were old and smart, you could figure that shit. Instead, no, they go to high school and their explanation is, well, the earlier we're put in high school, the longer we can stay in a place. What the fuck are you talking? If you're and these vampires that are supposed to be brother and sister, but have relationships, they're adopted. What? Why can't they just be? Oh no, we're married.
In high school, I mean, first of all, they do not look like high school students. They all look like they're in their 20s.
Yes.
And if you do not want to give yourself away, first of all, don't enlist in high school. But if you are going to enlist in high school, put on some darker makeup.
Don't be the weirdest fucking kids in school.
Exactly. And everybody's thinking, oh, that guy Edward, he just doesn't get with anybody. No one ever says, well, maybe Edward's gay. We don't know. I mean, it's ridiculous right there.
And let's keep following this train of ridiculousness. The guy's 90 years old. He's been on this earth for 90 years. He has been to every major country in the world. He has read books upon books. He has listened to every kind of music known to man. He has lived through 2 major wars, a Great Depression, all these interesting things. What the fuck does he have to talk to a 17-year-old girl about?
Okay, here was my thing. I actually theorized this by saying, he pulls this shit every year. He's in high school. He finds some nice, really good-looking 17-year-old girl, and he just gives her the business of, I'm so forlorn, and I'm really into you because you make me feel different. And I think next year he'll get rid of that chick and he'll have another one.
That's the Corey Coleman vampire.
Exactly. That's the Corey Coleman vampire right there.
But that's not what that book series is about. That book series is about a guy who actually hasn't had human love and wants it and gives it to this girl. There's so many ridiculous things, but I'm going to go back to the whole vampire thing. You keep saying, oh, well, they did this and this. I want you to name me one vampire movie. One. That's a good movie that changed as much as this did about vampire lore. That just literally threw out the entire book and called them vampires and made them resemble nothing like vampires.
Well, like I said, Interview with a Vampire pretty much stripped down everything. Near Dark stripped down everything.
Both of those films stuck very close to all the major myths.
In Interview with a Vampire, you could walk in front of mirrors. You could, I don't know what the garlic thing did. They never really addressed it. Now, I only saw the movie one time. Maybe they did address it, but they never mentioned anything about garlic. They look at crosses. I mean, for all I knew, so vampires were kind of superheroes. They were super fast, super strength. They had fangs. They drank blood, and they could not go out in daylight.
Right. All the major things of the vampire.
But look, what I'm saying is when we had Dracula, which is where the vampire lore came from. Dracula was something. I'm talking about movie wise. Dracula was something completely different from what we have now. As I said, Dracula turned into a bat, could not appear in front of mirrors, could not come in unless he was invited. It has transformed over the years. I cannot argue with you about. I cannot agree with you about how people change vampires because people are constantly changing what vampires are to them. It's all interpretive.
The thing is I agree that they have changed it. But what I've said, and you haven't backed up yet. On your point is that if you're going to do that, you have to make an interesting change. Near Dark made it interesting because vampires were turned into this roving pack of almost animalistic beings that tried very desperately at times to fight their own nature but couldn't. Dracula told a very interesting story. Nosferatu tells a very interesting story. I don't mind changing things about the vampire lore, but you look at a film like the one that's playing in theaters now, Let the Right One In. There's a film in which they stick to all the vampire lore and they actually reinvent it and tell a fascinating, great story in a way you've never seen this. This story is just a Harlequin romance set with a vampire instead of Eduardo the pool boy or Greaser Vic, the leader of the pack. I mean, this is just the unattainable bad boy mythos, put with fill in the blank of a vampire instead of something else. But he's not the vampire that it would make it hard to date a teenage girl. They've made everything work so that a teenage girl could date a vampire. Listen, and it's lame.
Well, listen, that's according to you.
But that's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying, and I'm trying to tell you that's my whole point. You seem to think that everybody should adhere to this strict rule of vampires when vampires are always changing. And you know what? We're going to see stories down the line. I mean, Jesus Christ, we had a movie called Life Force where vampires were from space.
Except that they weren't. In fact, the original title of that movie was supposed to be Space Vampires.
Well, there you go. I mean, you have vampires from outer space, and they're pretty much almost like zombies. Everybody has a different. Well, when it came down, they were infecting people, and people going crazy like zombies. You have so many different interpretations of a mythology, and they're going to continue to transform in years to come. But now, some movies will be good, or some stories will be good. Some of them will be bad.
Did they do anything interesting with these vampires?
Now, here's the other thing. You say that they didn't do anything interesting. Now, I'm not a 14-year-old girl. But apparently what this woman wrote, she wrote her version of what a 14-year-old girl would find interesting about vampires.
It was a Harlequin romance.
Something very romantic, something very smooth about them. And she changed the lore around to where, yes, they could walk around in sunlight. And instead of them saying, well, yeah, people think that we can't go out in sunlight because we will die. The reason why is because of this.
My Little Pony.
Yeah. I mean, and look, while that might not work for somebody like you, and it might not even, and I don't even mind that part. I mean, go ahead and explain it that way. Change it around all you want to. Make your own version of it. That's everybody has the right to do that.
Interesting.
Well, for some people, they did make it interesting. For 14-year-old girls out there,
I'm not a 14-year-old girl, and I'm not reviewing this film for 14-year-old girls.
Well, then you know what? The movie's not for you. It's not your target demographic.
That's what I'm saying.
No, what you're saying is what you started out saying before is that
this was crap.
No, what you started out saying before is that people should stick to this sort of rules of vampirism. People should they should stick to the rules saying that vampires should not appear in mirrors, should be killed by garlic, should not look at crosses.
If you're going to use an established myth as your crutch for not having to create something of your own, and you're going to bring in fans of that by the very nature of doing that. That's what you're doing. You're using this as a crutch. You're like, I would like to tell a story about monsters, but I don't actually want to invent a monster. I want to use a monster that's already been invented and they've made 200 movies about, and we're going to make the vampires. And that way we'll bring vampire fans in. Except rather than doing the things that will please those fans, I'm going to use that crutch and just use the ones that I want to tell my little Harlequin romance. Now, doing that is fine. But what's also fine is having people like me who enjoy a well-made vampire film saying, you know what, that's a really shitty vampire story, and you're not actually making them vampires.
Well, it's not your story. It's not meant for you. That's what I'm saying. You keep complaining about this like, I went in and I didn't get what I wanted. You
are defending the hell out of this.
No, I'm defending somebody's right to change the mythology around on something. I'm defending somebody's right to like write what they want to and not stick to the certain rules that you perceive right there. And I'm arguing the point that while you continuing to say I didn't get what I wanted out of this, well, you know what? The movie made $70 million, so there were a bunch of people who this movie was targeted towards that did get what they wanted from this movie.
And it's also, but what you're not talking about is the big backlash against it as well. I mean,
there was a backlash before the movie was even released.
I know, because there are those people that like this, and there's a strong contingent of people that really don't.
I mean, here's the deal, man. I don't care. I'm like I said, I'm trying to be fair. I don't give a fuck what people think about this movie. I didn't care. I don't give a shit about Twilight. I didn't read the books. It's not my kind of movie. It's not directed towards me. But I'm listening to all these people who are getting upset at me and co-hosts because we came out of it and didn't say.
That's what it.
No. I
was wondering why you're getting so like defensive. To me early on.
No, I'm not. No,
you're taking it back.
No, I'm being
me.
defensive towards you too because you fall into those kind of people where it says it should be this, and it's like, well, yeah, it could be a better movie. Maybe they should have rewritten. There's so many problems with that movie that they could have rewritten better, other than what they did with vampires. That I'm looking at it and I'm saying, okay, well, they pleased who they wanted to please. And it really, if it was that terrible of a movie, I would have said so. But I'm not going to go in and criticize the movie because it didn't appeal to me when it's not directed towards me. And I'm not going to criticize the movie.
But you do that all the time.
Well, no, I don't. I don't. In fact, I've had people get pissed at me because of something like VeggieTales. Fucking movie lord. I go in and see VeggieTales and I say, you know what?
I'm not other people and bring up movie lord. He's he's the extreme case.
Oh, but that is an example. I go in and I see VeggieTales and here I'll give you two movies. VeggieTales and the Miley Cyrus concert movie.
Neither of them vampire films.
Neither of them vampire movies, but I come in and I say, hey, I'll go in and I'll look at this and I say, you know what? This is a movie that's great for its audience. VeggieTales, Jesus Christ, there's no movies really hardly you can take your preschooler to. And sometimes they like to go out to films too. It's something to do with your kid. I looked at it. I saw a guy in there with his kid and they were having a good time watching the movie, singing together. I'm like, hey, this is a matinee movie to take your kid to. That's great. The fuck you didn't get that? It's a fucking talking vegetable movie. You didn't get that movie fucking bullshit. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. I didn't give it what you wanted to see, but you didn't even see the movie, and I'm going to give it what I'm going to give it, to be fair. I go see Miley Cyrus. I see tons of girls in there having a great time. The movie's in 3D. I'm actually watching it. I'm thinking, it's kind of fun to watch this. I wouldn't go see it on my own if I wasn't doing this for a living, but then I come out and I see it, and people are like, oh, that's crazy, man. You give this a full price? What the fuck is wrong with you? I'm like, hey, I'm not here to give a movie what you want me to give it. I'm here to look at this movie fairly, and people have different ways of looking at a movie. Cyrus argues with me about this all the time. He says, I'll go in and I give the movie what I want to give it, how it appeals to me. And I'm like, I'm not going to argue with you. That's your opinion. I like to look at movies how it's intended for the audience that it's put out for. And therefore, I will rate it appropriately, which is what I did for Twilight. So, what?
So, no, I mean, I was actually just about to say what you're doing is you're defending it based upon the target audience and not you. You're not being honest about your opinion on the film. You're being honest about what you think other people's opinions on the film are.
So you're, as a
reviewer, what you're saying is that you are a reflection of the audience it was intended for, not a person who likes movies who is telling you honestly what you thought about the movie.
No, because if I really thought it was terrible and they were ripping off people, then I would say, it's not even for its intended audience. I don't think it's any good. So I would tell you this much. I will even go back. I would backpedal a little because I didn't even know this when I went into Star Wars. That Star Wars movie that just came out.
Clone Wars.
I kind of feel bad giving it the rating that I did because when I went into it, I did not realize that it was going to be the same exact thing that people are going to see on TV.
Oh, yeah.
Now, while I was watching that, I was thinking, oh, this isn't too bad. I know they're going to have a TV series kind of based on this, but I know it'd be the exact same fucking thing.
Yeah, they took 3 episodes and merged them together.
And I will go back and actually say, hey, look, we already recorded. There was nothing I could do about it. But when I learned that, I was like, you know what? That movie deserves a lower rating because even though I didn't think it was that bad to see, they're ripping people off. They can look at it on TV.
Yeah, they charged them for something to see it early.
Exactly.
As opposed to, no, that's why it did so poorly, and that's why a bunch of us... No, I knew that coming out. And from what I've been told is that several of the episodes are even better and that Ahsoka isn't half as annoying as you get into the show. But
I've seen some episodes. They aren't that bad.
But I won't watch the show yet. I mean, I'll wait for it on DVD and give it a shot, but only because I've heard what I've heard. But that movie turned me off to the show.
But look, back to Twilight. I didn't think Twilight was terribly made. Yeah, it has some flaws.
The special effects.
Well, we actually talked about that too.
How bad were those?
We said, man, Jesus, they just show a vampire popping up because we get tired of that.
Where he's running up
he's on a fucking rope.
Oh my god, that was so. Those effects were so bad. I mean, and they were funny. But did your audience bust out laughing when the guy sparkled like diamonds the first time? Because that's what I was in an audience. I was in an audience of women who were all like first night, like, oh, we're so excited, and they were laughing throughout moments like that.
The people I saw it with, they weren't laughing, and they were chuckling at some other things. I mean, because the dialogue is incredibly cheesy.
Oh, wow.
And the whole shit with all these guys popping out of a look, it's strategically placed fog. There's a fog machine there for people to make an entrance with.
Yes,
and yeah, that shit was ridiculous. But as I said, there were some other things that I liked. The guy that played Edward. Look, I really like that guy, that actor. I can't remember his name right now. Rob something.
McFaggy Pants or something like that.
He could be, yes.
Emo Mac
Emo or something. Emo Mac Forlorn or something. But look, the guy was pretty good in the role. I like that character. I even like the people that played the family. There were certain things I liked about the movie that just, to be fair, I can't come in and just call it some bullshit. And I even said when I saw it, I met people halfway on it. I said, for me, this would be a rental because it's not terrible. It looks like something I would see on TV and would probably be entertained by if I saw it on TV. I would not go see it as a movie on my own. But for those fans, it's probably a rabbit full price for them, which I pulled back and said, you know what, I'm going to combine the two and make it a low matinee. And that's exactly what I did. That is my standard of being fair. So, yes.
You keep stopping and looking at me going, yes.
That's a response you should have.
I disagree with you. I mean, I'm for the most part with Cyrus on the way on philosophy of reviewing, that while you do owe it to an audience to say, hey, I think there's an audience for it, the bulk of your review needs to be how you perceived it, because that's what people who are regularly coming to you are going to look for.
Well, everybody has a different standard, because some people have told me, you're never going to please anybody.
No.
Some people have told me, they'd say,
you're never going to please everybody.
And I mean, no, not at all. You're never going to please everybody at all. This is no way. When something's based on opinion, everybody's going to disagree with you. And because I've had people say, I hate what you said about this movie, take it back, blah, blah, blah. And some people have said, I love the way you can look at it through other people's opinions, know how other people who this movie is intended for will react to it. And I don't think I would go as far as to say, if the movie's truly bad, go see it anyway. I think I did that one time.
See, I do the same thing that you do, but I do it as an afterthought in most of my reviews. Like in my written reviews, it's always like the last paragraph or two will be dedicated to. Now, if you're dragged to this, like what I wrote with this one, it's like, look, if you're forced to go see this because your girlfriend wants to see it, or your wife or your sister, it's not terrible. You can watch it and you can sit through it, and there's a few things you might say are kind of cool, but it's... What I found this film is I found it to be a guilty pleasure film. I found it like The Transporter for women. It was one of those things. Exactly, if you don't think too hard about this film, you can enjoy it. The problem I had was I thought too hard about it. Was I started questioning the things about the vampires. I started questioning the logic of why is this kid still going to high schools when he doesn't look like he needs to be in high school? And it's so easy to say, look, I'm not in high school anymore. I graduated. And why would he be interested in a 17-year-old girl who has nothing interesting about her at all? You know, these things come to my mind. It's like I'm spending too much time thinking about what's wrong with this movie, and I can't think of a single thing that I liked well enough to supersede any of that. So I can see that why an audience would like it. I'm just so not a member of that audience, and I admit that. That movie was so not made for me. I even wrote that in my review that went up this weekend. It is not a film that I find has any merit for someone like me. You either know you're in the audience or you're not. And if you think you're not in the audience, this isn't a movie that's going to change your mind. And that's my ultimate opinion on the film. But I hate how they water down vampires, because you brought up Anne Rice, and Anne Rice was like the beginning of watering down vampires a bit and making them more romantic. And then you get things like Vampire the Masquerade, which kind of watered it down. And then you end up with stuff like Underworld. And then you end up with this. And this is how vampires became lame. And it's really frustrating to see a film like Let the Right One In, which is playing in theaters now. If you're out there and you love vampire films and you haven't seen Let the Right One In, it's playing now. Find a theater playing it. See this movie. It is beautiful. It is elegant. It is awesome.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, look, you pretty much took my topic, because I was going to say in a little while, I was going to say People Like You. There is that movie out there, Let the Right One In, which I saw.
What'd you think?
No, man, that is a movie that is, you want to talk about something that is intelligent, is smarter, makes you think way after the movie is done. Mm-hmm. That is the movie. And if you're somebody who's looking for something a little bit better, there is an alternative out there.
I wouldn't say a little bit better. I'd say
no. You're exactly right. That's just me just talking.
I know. I just wanted to change that. Thank you. He said it's a little bit. No, it's a lot.
No, thank you for clarifying that. And no, the movie is actually one of my favorite movies this year. That is a movie I told co-host. It is haunting.
Oh yeah.
When that movie, this is how effective the movie is for me. The movie itself didn't scare me. It scared me as an afterthought, because the ending of that movie made me think of so many possibilities that could go wrong.
You're watching this and you're like, this is an adorable little love story between a boy and a vampire girl.
It's very sinister.
It's so sweet. And then you start thinking about it, you're like, oh, that guy just got fucked over hard.
Oh, yes.
And you start thinking about it, you're like, motherfucker. And I've got something to tell you after the recording. I'm not going to share it here.
Yeah, because we don't want to ruin it.
But the novel actually has a slightly different twist that they throw a hint in that makes things even more fucked up.
Yeah, no, the end of that movie.
Pause it real quick. Seriously, I'm going to tell you, because I want to hear your reaction to this.
Okay, all right,
we're going to pause it for a second. I'm going to tell him the secret to Let the Right One In.
Because what I got from the movie at the end was not something that was very sweet, not something that was very nice. It was very sinister.
So pause it.
Okay. That's fucked, man. That's fucked up. And it makes so much sense for a certain scene that happened in the movie.
Yeah.
And what you're telling me, because I was going to argue with you and say, well, you know what? Because you said that this is a small foreign independent movie that's not making much money. And I was saying, well, they'll probably remake it. But now you say they want to remake it with teenagers?
Oh, yeah. They want to remake it with sexy young teenagers, man. It's going to screw the whole thing. Because they're going to argue, look, Twilight did so well. Clearly, that's what teenagers want, is they want, vampire romance films. That's what we've got the rights to remake, and they're going to screw the whole film.
Hopefully they'll go back on that. I mean, I hope.
But if you are looking for a great film, one of those films that all the members of the crew watch and go, wow, this is a really great film, this is that film. I mean, I've met a few people that at worst said, I don't think it's as good as everybody's saying it is, but it's really good. That's the worst I've heard about this film. Everyone else is in love with it.
For those people who say probably it's not as good as I think, as everybody else thinks it is, they're probably like me. Because when I was watching it, I was saying, yeah, this is kind of slow. I don't see what the big deal is. But as the night went on after the movie, we were talking about it, and then I kept putting it through my head, and then I kept putting things together. And I was like, you know what? A movie that makes you do that, when you walk out and you keep adding stuff up and you get more from it than you ever did when you were watching it. I was like, that is a great movie.
And it's got such a great ending, though. I mean, it really is a very sweet film, even though there's so much sinister stuff to it.
Yeah, it's sweet in appearances, but nah. I mean, that movie scared the shit out of me at the end, and it scares you in thinking somebody's in real danger here.
And it's so good. Oh my God, see this movie. But yeah, so when you see a film like that, and then you turn around and see something like Twilight, it really is kind of like, man, that's so, it's just.
Well, it doesn't ruin the fact that there is another good vampire movie out there. It just says to me that there's a different version of a vampire story out there for a different crowd. It doesn't ruin it for me at all. And like I said, look, Dracula was out as a movie. Vampires turned into bats. We don't ever see that right now.
Sure we do. We occasionally see those.
Well, occasionally, but we don't really see that now because the audience has grown. I mean, what was the last movie that we saw that wasn't some sort of comedy where a vampire turned into a bat?
Well, now, first of all, vampire films have had there haven't been many good ones. We get a good. We've been in a dead zone for good vampire films for the longest time. Before Let the Right One In, the last really great vampire film was Near Dark, and that was 1988.
Well, some people would argue with you that Interview with a Vampire.
Some would argue,
yeah.
But a lot of people also don't like Interview with a Vampire.
Some people don't like Near Dark.
No, I know, but I'm saying, but okay, you've mentioned one other film in between that period of 20 years. Name another that was could be considered a really good movie. We're talking about three good vampire films in 20 years. It's kind of a dead zone. I'm not saying.
And I guess the last movie where some people kind of turned into bats, but didn't they turn into kind of like creatures was what do you call it? That Quentin Tarantino movie.
Yeah, and they actually turn into bats in the sequel. You're thinking From Dusk Till Dawn, which is also a really good one.
But let's look at something like your argument. Let's look at something like what do you call it? I Am Legend, which even back in the day changed the lore around. I mean, they weren't vampires. I mean, they were vampires because they called them vampires, but they didn't even drink blood. I mean, they just killed people. So you see what I'm saying? There can be successful things that have vampire lore, which strips everything out. They can change it around.
In the book, they were never called vampires, though, were they?
They were hinted as being vampires. They were hinted,
but they weren't called that. They were called that in the Vincent Price version.
But and even then, I think maybe in the book they mentioned some sort of gene or cell that was vampiric in form. Mm-hmm. But I mean, for all intents and purposes, they were vampires, and there was nothing about them that was They didn't have fangs. They didn't fly. They weren't even super strength. They were pretty much zombies who could not come out in the light. But they are a version of vampire. So that's why I'm saying people should be allowed to play with that mythology all they want to.
I'm not, and I've never argued that you can't play with the mythology. My argument is that you have to do something interesting and new and different with it if you do. And this film doesn't. I don't feel that this film does anything interesting enough.
You might want to get close to
that this film does anything interesting enough at all to warrant suggesting it to other vampire fans. Because it doesn't. It just strips them down, waters them down, and turns them into superheroes. And that's what disturbs me. It really took the best things about vampires and got rid of them to keep just the lame things. The whole idea of a vampire story is no matter what aspects you have, vampirism is a real curse. And that's never presented in Twilight. While he talks about it at the end, he's kind of like, well, you really don't want this. There's nothing in the movie that shows you why you wouldn't want it. Because
Well, no, I'd say I disagree with that. They actually showed you the reason why he could not turn this girl into. People, look, if you really are into this, cut it off. If you don't want to hear any spoilers.
If they're really into it, they pick it already.
The reason why he could not bring her into his lifestyle, change her to a vampire, is because if he wanted to change her, it would be the hardest thing for him because he would want to drink her blood, and he would probably kill her. So he's really hesitant to do that.
I still don't think that anything they did was interesting enough to warrant it being, considered a good vampire film. I think it's an incredibly weak one at best.
And people who want to hate this movie, they will agree with you. But I'm fine if people want to hate me for saying that the movie is not bullshit. But when I saw it, I didn't hate it. I didn't find myself walking out saying, this movie totally sucks. And I've seen enough bad movies to where I would say that, and this isn't one of them.
This is one of those movies that I hate it more and more the further I get away from it. The more I talk about it, the more I just want to hit it with a brick. It's literally one of those things that I have to stop thinking about because I'll just continue to hate it more and more.
Yeah,
I
don't care enough to hate about this movie either. That's the other thing. The movie's there. It's meant for 14-year-old girls, girls who really want to find vampires romantic.
I saw it, and you say everybody keeps going, "Oh, it's for 13, 14-year-old girls." I went to a packed screening of college-age girls to 35-year-old women. I was not in a room full of tweens. I was in a room full of people, my age and somewhat younger, but all beer-drinking folk who were sitting around wanting to see a good movie.
See, we were there with girls who were clearly teenagers who had drove and they came in packs.
Which theater did you guys go to?
We went to the Westgate down south. And there were girls.
I went to the Alamo Draft House. I was like,
okay. See, you went to that. That. And see where we were. There were girls who were clearly having slumber parties for this shit. They showed up in like their pajamas.
They actually sold out 3 screens. They kept having to open new screens to sell that film.
Well, the core audience for this movie is fangirls and very young fangirls. Now, there are a lot of women who are older, and as you say, in their 30s, who are looking forward to this shit. And yeah, I mean, I can understand why, because it appeals to that romantic angle that every woman likes, and that's what I'm saying.
Well, the unattainable Corey Coleman bad boy, the asshole that loves you and no one else. Well, no, because that's really what Edward is. Edward is a guy. He's not attracted to any other woman. He doesn't like any other girl in school. I mean, there's no other girls for him. He doesn't even have his own vampire girl, but here's this. And he loves her. But every instinct in his body says, I'm going to tear you apart and drink you dry. But this love that I bear in my chest is so strong that it prevents me from killing you. Isn't that romantic? And like that's bullshit is what that is.
Well, some girls see it as romantic.
No, they do.
To a certain level. I guess they can.
How creepy of a stalker was that motherfucker? Like, she wakes up and he's like staring at her while she's asleep, and she's like, do you do this often? Only for the last few months. And she's like, and I'm just like, fucking creepy. And she's like, romantic. And it's like, no, I tried that once. I got a face full of mace. I spent a month in the pokey and I got a restraining order. Well, that's not romantic.
Now, if you and I had walked in there, that would be creepy for us if we were vampires, though.
If we were vampires, it would be sexy. And like, he follows her around town. Were you following me? Well, just to see if you were okay.
Oh man, he was a crazy stalker.
Me, you crazy motherfucker.
Yeah, no, he is. He's off, man. Yeah, I agree with you on that. That motherfucker's weird.
But in the movie, and see, this is one of the problems I've always had. It's what I call Bed of Roses syndrome. I don't know if you ever saw the Christian, what's his name? Christian Slater movie called Bed of Roses, where in a movie, stalking is considered romantic. And then when stalkers in real life do it, people freak out. And where did you get the idea? Where did you get the idea that would be romantic? That calling me 80 times and leaving love songs on my answering machine would be sweet. Well, you see, Christian Slater did it. It was really romantic. And no. If you look like Christian Slater, it's romantic. If you don't, if you look like Carlisle, it's called stalking.
Oh yeah, no, man. Well, that's why we should show up and talk to people with a vampire cape on and shit. Maybe a widow's peak.
But that was another one of the problems I had with this film. Was everything in this film that this guy does is he doesn't do anything romantic. He never shows up with flowers or surprises her with her favorite item or listens to her intently in a conversation. Here's that one off thing about something she says that she loves and goes and does that for her and makes it sweet. No, he follows her around and secretly shadows her. Oh, that's not love.
No, it's what you got to understand. He hadn't had a woman in 200 years. So no, that is weird. The other thing that was weird was that son of a bitch. He keeps telling her, I can't be around you, but he keeps popping up.
He won't let her alone. He's like, I can't be around you, but I can't quit you.
Yeah, exactly.
Why can't I quit you?
Oh, well, man.
So I think we've talked about Twilight quite enough.
We've talked about Twilight for almost 30 minutes, man.
Nice. So I think perhaps since we've eaten up all that time, now it's time to move on to some email.
Get some email.
Now it's time for Spill Email Answering with Corey and Carlisle.
Here we are. Yes. Okay. Before we do that, while I'm looking up an email, I was ribbing you on the internet, right? I still think you were full of shit, but I was ribbing you on the email.
What are you talking about?
On your blog for the Lion King.
You can think I'm full of shit or not. I really, honestly, guys, I wasn't even going to talk about this. I don't give a shit about the Lion King. I really, it was.
See, I think you bullshit on that.
For you. I set it up a week before. I said, I hate the Lion King. You're like, hate the Lion King? Yeah, I hate it. I just left it. And then I came in ready to talk about that thing with a smile on I literally, honestly, guys, it was just a rant. It was for fun. It was not meant to be. I didn't think these people. I knew some people would take it seriously, and everybody would have a lark on it. I didn't realize it would go for like 100-long. Arguments.
People went crazy. No, I'm just saying. Now, if you came in saying this was a gag that I set up, that's bullshit.
It's not bullshit.
That you like a week ago you set a plant saying I'm gonna fool people.
No. When the Lion King came up, I was like. I mentioned, I fucking hate the Lion King. And I was like ready right then and nothing happened with it. I'm like, you know what? If anyone brings this up during the week, I'll dust off the old rant. Dude, I can send you a link to where I wrote the rant down like 2 years ago in one of my blogs.
No, I know. I'm pretty sure you had a rant before. I think you feel a lot more strongly about the Lion King than you believe.
No, Happy Feet, I do.
Oh, I know that. You and Leon sat in my room, talked about that shit for an hour.
But Leon brought up the ant bully, and the ant bully was another one that I didn't care about that I just found funny. That it's like the ant bully is about communists. It is. I don't care that it's about communists. I find it funny that it's about communism. And I went off and wrote this whole big long thing about it. People took it way. Like, you mentioned that something's communist, and people instantly set themselves up at the angle that you think that's evil and that communism is evil and that the Red Menace is trying to sneak into kids. And I'm like, no, I just fucking find it funny, dude. What the hell? Don't take me so seriously. So no, I literally with the Lion King, I don't. Why would I be that hot? You honestly think I'm that hot under the collar for a 14-year-old movie?
You went crazy over Happy Feet. Why would I not think you went crazy over the Lion King? You go crazy over a lot of things. 14 years later?
No, I don't go crazy on a lot of things. You can mention that one thing I went crazy on.
I don't know why I just wouldn't transfer over to something like Happy Feet then.
Happy Feet happened.
People can be mad. They can be passionately mad about something for years.
And Happy Feet wasn't even something I was mad about. I got worked up over the reaction I got from it, and I just quit smoking.
Okay,
that was pretty rough. Okay. You remember that time? I was on edge for a few weeks.
You and Cyrus quit smoking, and you two were crazy.
Yeah,
at certain points.
Yeah,
crazy.
Absolutely.
And admittedly, so you said you were crazy, but there was some points where I was like, "What the fuck just happened?"
I quit smoking, and it's the worst thing in the world, but it's the best thing for you after a few months.
No, it is. I encourage anybody to not smoke, especially girls. I have a bias against girls smoking because I want you to be hot for a long time.
Hot.
Girls look when they're young and smoking. It looks good.
Once they're in their 30s, they're like, "Hey, how's it going, Carlisle? You used to find me sexy when I was 17." Yeah, but you didn't have like 80 wrinkles between your eye and your cheek at that point.
When girls smoke, look, I know a lot of girls are gonna get on the site and tell me I smoke because I want to. You can't tell me not to do it because it's my right. I'm like, hey, look, it is your right. Fine, I'm being very selfish. I'm telling you,
13 years, man.
Look, I still meet girls who are like in their 20s. I mean, you think you're hot. Well, you wait till you take a 20-some-year-old girl home and her breath smells like shit and you're trying to make out with her. It smells like pure ass, dog ass at that.
Well, that just means that she's got other extracurricular hobbies that might prove to be interesting.
Yeah, put your mouth somewhere else. Not on my mouth, though. Now I have to smell that shit.
Hey, maybe she goes ass to mouth.
Oh, get out of here with that nasty shit.
It tastes like dog ass. It tastes like ass. Well, maybe she'll go ass to mouth. Oh, you shut up. You're talking
that's
filthy.
Too far. That you take that nasty filth somewhere else. We're good Christian folk around here.
My ass. Shut up.
All right. Give
me an email and just make sure it's not about The Dark Knight.
All right. Carlisle, The Dark Knight was such a success that here's an email. And I don't know if it's any good or not. It's about horror franchises. It just said, the reason why I'm reading this is because it has a question for either Coco or Let's Do This. And it's from Nick. All right. So Nick says, it seems that with the Saw franchise getting so ridiculous that people will stop taking it seriously, are there any horror franchises out there that you felt ended without becoming crazy or weird or just not true to the series? So I guess what he's asking is there any like horror franchises that went on for a long time that just didn't turn silly? And I really can't think of any right now. None. No,
they all got silly because there came a point in the mid 80s when people stopped taking them seriously, and so people stopped making them seriously. They went the James Whale approach and started making them tongue in cheek, and they got more and more silly. There might be one or two. There might be one or two that doesn't get silly by the end, but all the major ones do. Every last one of them.
That's a good question, and right now I can't think of anything off the top of my head that does not. I know, and it's not even a matter of getting silly. I mean, it's a gimmick that worked the first time that just probably doesn't work the second time. I mean, let's look at some movies that don't get silly but just weren't as good as the first. We had The Ring 2, which just didn't have the effect of the first one.
Well, it was a terrible film.
Yeah, and it was a bad movie. We have one of the biggest movies that probably bombed, and they tried to like catch lightning in a bottle twice. Blair Witch Project. Regardless of what you think about it, a lot of people like that movie. They thought it was really cool. The second one, I mean, come on, how are you going to repeat that? And the second one was just
no, you're just talking ones with immediate sequels. You're just talking about bad sequels. These aren't even series of films. I mean, what he's asking about is he's asking about Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Hellraiser, Wishmaster, Leprechaun.
Exactly. And you know what? It's funny because he said, please don't say the Leprechaun series.
Well, the Leprechaun series started silly. I mean, it was silly from
yeah. I mean, you got to kill a leprechaun.
But that's because that came out during that period when it was cool to be silly.
My point with mentioning sequels, though, is that even after the first one, it's hard to carry. So how are you going to carry 3, 4, 5, 6 movies after that?
But the problem was that they actually actively got silly. Like Jason went to Manhattan, and then he went to space after he went to hell. Freddy Krueger's jokes just got more and more asinine.
Freddy Krueger, he hosted a television show.
Yeah.
After Freddy's Nightmares. And he was like the Crypt Keeper type host. Hey, everybody, this is Freddy. He's not scary anymore.
Once Dimension picked up the rights to Halloween got silly as fuck.
H2O and all that.
Well, before that, Mike 666, The Secret of the Life of Michael Myers. The Curse of Michael Myers. And then the 7th one, which was H2O. And then H2O2, which was Halloween 8 with fucking, who was the rapper in that one?
Busta Rhymes.
Busta Rhymes.
He actually he beat Michael Myers, man. Took Busta Rhymes to come in and beat up Michael Myers.
Yeah, because that was serious. Oh my God, no, that was silly. No, all of the good ones. Hellraiser got fucking silly.
Hellraiser
Bloodlines and the ones that went all direct to video.
I can name one that had a great sequel. That's a horror movie.
Well, there are some that had great sequels, but not that didn't get silly.
You had Dawn of the Dead, which I thought is a great sequel to Night of the Living Dead.
Day of the Dead's really good.
And some people like Day of the Dead, some people don't. I'll even give it that much. So you have an enduring series, whether you like it or not.
I love Land of the Dead and Diary of the Dead. See, I know some people find those silly.
I do not like Land of the Dead. Diary of the Dead is cool, but I don't really count it as legitimately part of that series. But yeah, so that's zombies.
You don't consider it a legitimate part of that series?
What you talking about? Diary of the Dead?
Yeah.
No, because it's sort of a remake of Dawn of the Dead. I mean, not Dawn of the Dead, but Night of the Living Dead.
Except that it's not a remake; it's just a same story on the first night.
Yeah, on the first night, and he's retelling the story of Night of the Living Dead, except with new technology.
I think it definitely fits because it's the same writer director making.
It's the same writer director, but it's not part of.
But none of them. But none of the whole point to. Dawn of the Dead takes place.
It's a sequel.
At that first night. They get on the helicopter. It's not an actual sequel.
It is a sequel. That's an actual sequel.
There are no characters from the first film in the second film.
But it's the continuation of that story. It's like the zombie plague has actually spread, and they center on different characters in that same world. And then the third one is part of that same world too. The new one is not part of that same world.
Yeah, it is. It just goes back and shows where it started, which he never showed in the first one. He never showed where Night of the Living Dead started. They never, knew the origin, and that film is about the origin of where that came from.
No,
and Romero, the director, the guy who made all the films, considers it part of the series. So I have to go with him. I see where you're coming from. I really do. Where they're kind of telling a storyline and going through time, because the first film is about the very first night. Dawn of the Dead, while it occurs on the first night, the bulk of the story is about weeks and months after that. And then Day of the Dead is years after, and then Land of the Dead is 20 years later.
And I'll tell you why it doesn't seem like it's part of the same series, because in each movie, I mean, they've managed to move through time.
Yeah.
And so technology has increased. They've come up with different. The movies look different to appropriate the passing of time. You can't really consider Diary of the Dead part of that series if the first movie started out in the 60s and then they go back and show you the first night again with people having video cameras and editing technology and the internet. So it doesn't follow time chronologically in that series. So that's why I would not consider it as part of this as a direct sequel.
Then you seriously need to go back and watch Night of the Living Dead and then Dawn of the Dead again and realize that time has progressed, even though it takes place just days later, where all of a sudden we're not in the 60s anymore. We're right smack dab in the middle of the 70s.
You can take liberties with that and say that, over years time has passed and then maybe
except that this is happening days and weeks right after the initial thing, not years. So, I mean, that argument falls apart right there as well. I see why. I see where you're coming from. I just disagree. I think it's still a part of the series.
Yeah, no.
And he's making another one.
Well, yeah, I know he's making another one. He said he wants to, and he admits he doesn't even like Diary of the Dead. He wants to do that a little bit better.
Oh, did he say that now?
Yeah, he's saying that now. Yeah, he said wasn't able to do what he wanted to do with that. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with this new one. So, but anyway, man. So we answered some email. It's coming up on an hour.
All right,
it's like pretty much an hour.
So I guess you've been listening to The Twilight Show with a little bit of mixed horror thrown in. Thanks for listening.
Just a tad.
Yeah. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.